You're under a year, you think.
In a sense, we're a bit quixotic at the moment, or it feels a bit like that, in that there's this great splurge of alternative theatre cropped up in the 60s. And in terms of the number of companies doing what they initially set out to do, is to find that new audience and to leave London, go out to the places that don't get theatres, perform in their spaces, in their halls, in their gymnasia, in their fields. That seems to be, because of great savage cuts in funding, a declining field at the moment. I hope that the decline can be arrested. But I don't think the ideal or the desirability has changed for all the fact of cut funding.
Yep, we need some other wood.
Well, there was one lovely story I wanted to bring in. It's a story that it's about another company, that they were in Wales and they were going out to do a show in some fairly remote community in Wales, and one of the kids came up before the show and very seriously, without no joke at all, asked one of the actors, "Is it in colour or black and white?"
Story is something that you all know about. Game is something you all know about. Play as an activity is something you all know about. I mean, obviously that is for, as it were, under 10s using the word play. But in fact, in the Middle Ages, play actually meant any form of activity, any form of engagement. And so they would say they were playing.
We don't just do plays, and that's really what this session this afternoon is about, is what we do apart from plays. There are a lot of skills involved in what we're doing, because the medieval performer, a lot of people don't realise this, was in fact not a stumbling, rude mechanical like the figures that we get in Midsummer Night's Dream. He was potentially a very skilled entertainer, who very often probably would have begun his career as a sort of variety entertainer. He might have been a juggler, he might have been a stilt walker, a dancer, a contortionist, an illusionist, a storyteller. And at a certain point in the Middle Ages, the taste for plays developed, and theatre companies started to form. But it's quite likely that people would have had these skills. And in fact, the plays indicate that very often these skills might be called upon. Certainly singing and musical skills are a very important part of what we do.
John Dallon, compagnon di
Their work is different to work that we've had by artists or theatre groups before. It has a very particular attraction to a broad cross-section of people. It's very entertaining, and they're a company with a reputation for a very high quality of work. So all those factors were very much in our minds when we asked them to come here for a week.
Jusqu'à son si tempo. À notre terre, Sainte Paillon, Paillon, mais je vais à notre terre, Paillon, Paillon, Paillon,
Does anybody recognise this type of instrument? Does it remind you of any other instrument? Yes? Yes, it's a bit like a violin, isn't it? It's got strings, which you bow with a bow, but it's a more simple construction. The back is made out of a single piece of wood, which is carved out till it's very thin, and then there's another piece of wood put on the front, and it's only got 3 strings, which are made of gut. Made of the guts of sheep. I'll just play you a little tune to show you what it sounds like. This instrument is called the rebec, and it's still played in Eastern Europe by folk players.
My class were quite interested because they saw, actually, not on the television but in life, the 2 instruments. We'd seen them on television in one of our programmes, a rebec and a lute, and they thought it was smashing just to see them there, you know, they knew the names of them.
In the broadest possible sense of education, theatre is educational. But we're talking about the experience of medieval players here at Wells. In that sense, we were talking about education in a more formal sense, that is within schools primarily, but also with community groups. There are many different ways of looking at it. There are theatre companies that spend all their time working in schools, called theatre and education companies, TIE companies. They are primarily teachers, passing on skills and ideas which can be expressed in theatre. As an arts centre, I don't think it's our role to provide teachers for the education system or to provide TIE companies to go into local schools. Those facilities are available. What we provide, which is unique, is the opportunity for children in schools to experience the work of professional artists, musicians, visual artists, actors, writers, so that they are a professional company going into schools, and schools can see the work and what it means, so that the quality is of the essence. When we had dance companies here, we tried to get the best dance companies, not a dance company who's used to working in schools, but so that the schools can see quality work, and therefore they're being given art in its truest sense, rather than education dressed up as art.
We have a lot of things which are of interest in an educational situation, and it allows us to share a lot of ideas about what we do with other people.
Well, the structure that we've got at the moment is by no means the definitive structure. There are a whole load of other aspects of what we do that can be presented in a number of different ways, and are. I mean, Dick does his lecture with slides, which is certainly very accessible for sixth formers. We can also offer schools more specialised, smaller scale workshops with more participation involved, from which those lucky individuals would get a lot more because they were doing it themselves. The good thing about the presentation is that we can and have played it to, you know, hundreds of people at a time, so obviously the effect.
Touching all corners, if there are no corners, all the walls, right the way around. Enjoy it as a stretch there. Right down low and to the side. Try and feel it working through the spine, so it starts from the base of the spine, goes right the way out the back, out through the arms.
If you want to watch it from through on...
Oh, yeah. Oh, right.
We just sort of played around fairly freely with the return of Mac having solved the
Right, I've explained a bit about Mac, which is when he gets back to his cottage.
This is when he comes back to his cottage with the lamb. And we were just sort of playing...
Right, before the shepherds are after him. Right, Mac's still in his sheep, and he's just come back to, what's his wife called? Jill.
I tend to like performances better than films for some reason. I don't know why. I just tend to like performances. They just... I mean, you can't escape from the atmosphere of performance, depending on what it is.
But your conception of Shakespeare is of black marks on a white page. And after all, they're only written down as actors' parts. They're actually never collected as play text when they came out. I mean, theatre is not black marks on a page. Theatre is what happens between you and me, between an actor and an audience.
Yes, I mean, it's that thing though of once you've seen it, you never forget it. Of just realising or making people realise how different. And I mean, of course, I'm prejudiced, but how much better live entertainment is than something which is on the screen. I mean, that sad thing, especially around this time of year where you have, and don't forget the folks back home, you can join in on your own particular Snakes and Ladders set or something. That awful sort of feeling you have as you sit there sort of dulled into stupefaction in front of the tube or the box or whatever you want to call it, and there's something game going on the telly which you are supposed to be relating to, the studio audiences, but of course that's live.
Don't you think we sit up in front of a television set and become really blasé about these skills, but didn't you think to see these people actually doing it, you saw the skill involved? It was so alive. The children have absolutely adored it. They really have.
Yeah. And I think too, in this area of Norfolk, we're terribly cut off. And unless children go to visit places like Wells Centre, they have no hope of getting to see anything in terms of theatre at all.
Well, I only get a chance to go to theatre with the school, because where I live we don't get much chance to go up there. So I think it's good fun if you get people coming in, you get more of a chance to see.
We started with a Dance Mime Month, which was 3 solid weeks of residences in March this year. And that was with the London Contemporary Dance Experience, with Mantis Dance Company and Intriplicate Mime Company, and they were each working here for a week. Since that time, that was such a success, and the nature of the package, which involved work within schools, work with community groups, workshops with adults, and performances. That combination is a package which we followed since then. For a total this year will be 9 or 10 weeks of solid activity. That includes classical music, jazz music, artists working in schools, mime companies from the continent, a whole blend and mixture. And in future we expect that to be a regular pattern. So that something between 9 and 10 weeks every year will be taken up of concentrated, what we call residency work, which will include a large part of it being formal education activities.
And performing puppets, doing performing puppet plays, was in fact one of the staples of medieval theatre. Because for us, puppet theatre now is relegated to the kids. You give the basically, puppet shows are for children, because it is quite clearly not a naturalistic form of theatre.
We've done swells and we've Boccoloni, Hempstead, Trunking out the way, and then to the no deed. And at the mill, sack a don't have life. A line spack is.
Alle heil, Simon, if I who fars the fire doctor and the whisper.
Line welcome, be me and John also, who know what do you hear?
Simon, what John? Big old net has the pair, and for thee is equal, and deck a line to Grindor corn, and carry it home again, I Briar Svedos, either nativine.
It shall be done.
You see, the middle 2 fingers, it's more or less like that. The middle 2 fingers operate the head, these 2 fingers here operate the left arm, and the thumb here operates the right arm. Now, these 2 here, as you can see, once you've got the puppets made to the characters in the story, then all you have to do is fit a voice to them and fit a particular style of movement to them, one which suits the sort of person they are. Now, what do you think about the miller, just looking at him? Look how his hands and his nose is different from his wife. What sort of person do you think he is? Grumpy, yes, that's right. Yes, anything else? Yeah. Deep voice, yes, that would be very useful, yes. Yeah. What? That's right, yes. Well, you've got it all in, you've got 3 main characteristics of the miller. You're absolutely right, perhaps you've read the story.
Out at the door he goes full privily, when that he saw his team after. He looked up and looked till, and a found the crack his horse, as it stood he wound behind the mill under a leather cell. To the horse he doth him fire and well, he stripped off the bridle, bricht and all, and when the horse was close, he did him John, and so on the friend, and put with
It's what you get from the plays themselves is something that suggests a much more free and easy informality. The key word always when we're talking about it is game. It was a game that people played, and the audience are a part of that game.
This miller goes again, over the side.
It fits in well with our ideology, because one of the reasons that medieval theatre excites us is because of that, because of what that implies, and because it tells us that they had true popular theatre in the 200 years before Shakespeare.
Including the audience in what you do, lighting the audience, journeying around the audience, having a certain amount of audience participation, that is all towards breaking down the rather stodgy
bow tie image of Rossini March Theatre.
And the nature of activities that are going on here, the fact that their children may be talking about the visit of the artist to their schools, the fact that they may have a friend who's been here to have a drumming workshop with a jazz player, all has its effect. The fact that they may get drunk together in the pub, it is all going to have a community effect and a very real impact in somehow making art less fearsome and more a part of their whole experience. I think it's crucial for Wells, particularly, because Wells is 30 miles from the nearest urban surround, 30 miles from the nearest other theatre, concert hall, over 20 miles from the nearest cinema, for God's sake. So that Wells is very deprived of that whole range of experience. Particularly so for the young people too, because the education cutbacks are drawing out the peripatetic drama and music teachers.
I think while we're trying to give the children this sort of experience, then it will rub off onto the parents, and they'll persuade the parents to let them go and see those sort of things. Mm-hmm. And because we give them more access to that type of thing, they will become more accustomed to it and probably want, to go and see something else.
Also, because they left a lot of the work to the imagination of the audience. I mean, if you imagine the thing here, there's nothing at all to indicate where a scene might be taking place. If you went on to the theatre, that trundling, complicated effects are bringing painted backgrounds. And you wouldn't have to use your imagination at all as to where a scene is taking place. But here, it's all going to be contained within the play itself. So I say, right, well, I'm going out to visit someone, and I go on a journey round, and I come along, and you've immediately got a door, you can have a conversation with someone. If they're coming out onto the street, okay, very simply, they're coming out to do some shopping, I just sort of use a little shop sign like this at the house.
Holy angels! He is going shopping! May he get away with it!
Holy Mother, there he is, fussing and puttering among his muslin. Got me with you? And with you, sir.
Seeing the performance on yesterday, you actually see the performance first, and then the day after you see how they learnt to do the tricks and what it really was about. And then it's more enjoyable to have a lecture after the actual performance, because you've seen what they've been able to do, and then they explain how they did it and why they do it.
The thing to do is to go and get some solid rubber dog balls from the pet shop and start by just throwing one from side to side like that. It's all in the throwing, it's not catching so much as being accurate with your throw. Keep your hands at waist level. You just do that for hours and hours until you've got it steady. And then you put another in. As you see, as this one comes over, that one has got to leave to make room for it, so it has to go back over the other side. Got to make room. So it becomes eventually a continuous pattern like that.
best way to start. Keeping a nice gentle arc, going not too high, not too low, but not reaching your hands up to catch it, sort of doing that. So if you want to learn, start by doing this. The tendency at first will be that it'll go forward, you'll be throwing it, you won't be keeping parallel there.
The presentations, I mean, they are very popular and they seem to go down very well. So, in a way, they're a good introduction for children to a different kind of theatre that can seem a lot more interesting.
Hopefully that some of that will stick with them, and they will be able to they'll actually remember something about theatre which is completely different from the sort of ideas they might get from Cross Arch or seeing pantomime or something. That perhaps theatre has something different to offer them, and hopefully that will stay with them.
Thank you very much, everyone.